is the 77 WABC minicast.
And you're back in the Stone Zone, right here on the Roger Stone Show, to get one of my favorite guests, Troy Smith, the editor and publisher of Slingshot.news, which is quickly emerging as one of the great alternative news sites in the country. The great thing I like about Troy is that he calls them as he sees them. Some may say this is a conservative-based website. Others may say it's a liberal-based website. I would say it's a fact-based website. Some of the best investigative reporting in the country happening right there at Slingshot.news. Troy, welcome once again to the Stone Zone.
Honored to join you here and be able to talk to the people.
So I was kind of amused this week. Jill Biden has a book coming. That's the way they always work. They try to cash in with the book. Who would buy her book is a real question mark to me. Dr. Jill, who is, of course, not a doctor, certainly not a medical doctor, actually claiming that when she saw Joe Biden melt down in the debate with Donald Trump, where he became literally incoherent, that her immediate concern was that he was having a stroke, that she'd never seen him act like this before or since. That sounds to me like a gigantic lie, because, in fact, Joe Biden was non-compos mentis through most of his campaign for president. That's why they had to hide him in the basement. He was essentially a diaper-wearing vegetable who was heavily sedated through most of his presidency. That's proven by the fact that, by his own admission in the pages of the New York Times, his signature was affixed to a number of pardons with an auto pen that he knew nothing whatsoever about. These are life and death decisions. Joe Biden was over the hill when they nominated him for president. He was the last choice of Barack Obama and his wife. They tried to prop up Cory Booker, but the epic corruption of his days as mayor of Newark would have come back to bite him. By the way, Cory Booker embezzled $750,000 from the City Water Authority when he was mayor. That was in a contract with his law firm, went from his law firm directly to his pocket. He tried to say that he didn't vote for that as an ex officio member of the watershed Newark City Water Authority, except for the formal minutes of the meeting show him present and voting yes. And then he had three different explanations of what the $750 was for. First, Cory Booker says it was a partner buyout. Then he said it was deferred compensation. He later said it was legal fees that he had owed. I'll tell you what it was. It was a bribe. And the official at the Newark City Water Authority, called Watershed, who approved the payment to Cory Booker, she went to prison, and he went to the U.S. Senate. So Cory Booker's candidacy fell flat. Then they tried to pop up Kamala Harris as a candidate, but she couldn't stop giggling. So that didn't work out too well. They couldn't find a candidate. And then they realized that, well, Joe Biden was completely and totally compromised. You see, the Obamas knew the same thing we know, that Joe and Hunter and brother Jim took tens of millions of dollars of bribes during his time as vice president. Bribes from Ukraine, bribes from Russia, bribes from Romania, bribes from China. There's enough today to send Joe Biden to prison tomorrow. I like Congressman James Comer of the Oversight Committee, but the very prominent lawyer, Robert Costello, former federal prosecutor there in New York, has offered to provide evidence to the U.S. Congress and the Oversight Committee of multi-million-dollar bribes directly to Joe and Hunter. But for some reason, they don't seem to be interested. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled that it's very hard to prosecute a president. Not so a vice president. If a vice president took a bribe for an official act during their time in office, they should be prosecuted. And unfortunately, what's really funny here is that, as you know, Biden did extensive interviews both with special counsel Robert Hur, who was assigned to look into whether Joe Biden had, as they charged Trump, retained certain classified documents that he was not entitled to have. The truth is, Biden retained those documents from his time as vice president. and his time as a U.S. Senator because he was on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and therefore he had access to classified documents. His retention of those documents was illegal. He shouldn't have been prosecuted. If you were going to prosecute Donald Trump, who, by the way, was not violating the law, because under the Presidential Documents Act, as a president or a former president, Donald Trump was entitled to retain and declassify any document of his choosing. He could declassify a document simply by holding it in his hand and saying, "This is declassified." That's the law. Yet Jack Smith, in his extra constitutional Arctic frost investigation, they decided they were going to put President Donald Trump in jail. Why? Because they wanted to stop him from returning to the White House. Now, as you pointed out to me, Joe Biden is fighting in federal court to halt the release of the audio tapes of his interviews with his biographer, as well as his interviews with the special counsel Robert Hur. Now, I knew a president who went to the courts, went all the way to the Supreme Court to prevent the release of the tapes that he has made. His name was Richard Nixon. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled against him 9-0. So, Troy, my question for you is, why should Joe Biden be treated any differently?
Well, Roger, there is no reason. And when you examine the way in which President Trump had his home of Mar-a-Lago raided by the FBI over pretty much the exact same thing, only as you point out, he had the full authority to do what he did in his scenario because he was the commander-in-chief. At this time, based on the investigation conducted by Robert Hur, he was investigating conduct that occurred while Joe Biden was vice president. And, Roger, we have to bring up the facts surrounding this because Biden has already been caught in a lie over this once. We covered this when we were doing our show on Rumble, and Joe Biden lied to reporters. You remember the strange press conference he held at the White House after the release of the Hur report, in which he dressed down Peter Doocy on national television. I believe he called him a fool or an idiot or something of that nature, because President Biden claimed that Robert Hur and his interviewers were bringing up Beau Biden, the fallen son of the president. And it was released through the transcript that was revealed that in fact, Biden had not been questioned about his son at all. In fact, he volunteered to talk about his son and then forgot the dates in which his son died and had been sick. So there's a pattern here. Joe Biden has been caught once in this transcript lie, Roger. He's been caught telling lies about his son and the way he was interviewed. Now we have to ask the question, what is in those tapes that Joe Biden is so vehemently trying to stop? And, Roger, I want to bring this back just for a second to the point of Jill Biden's comments about the debate. Within these comments, I kind of want to get your thoughts on this as well. She trashes Melania Trump, the First Lady of the United States, claiming that Melania Trump did not offer her the traditional tea time that First Ladies will have during the transfer of power. Now, people, let's remember, Joe Biden and his cronies locked down the entire city of Washington, D.C. They deployed military forces. They had a sealed-in inauguration. To my knowledge, the only inauguration in American history where the American people were barred from entering. So President Biden comes in with his cronies, who were really running the show. We know Biden wasn't running the show. They lock down the country. They steal an election. And on top of it, they have the gall to come back with these book deals where they're undoubtedly raking in millions of dollars for books that are never sold, in the case of Obama or Michelle Obama or any of these people. And at the end of the day, they trash Melania Trump. What do you think about her comments about the First Lady? I mean, there's just I can read it right here, Roger. She says, and I quote, that she was dismayed by the lack of a tea time. What do you have to say about that?
Look, I don't think that the Obamas afforded any great courtesy to Donald Trump when he was coming into office. And people say, well, Trump refused to attend Biden's inauguration. Of course he did. He was disputing the outcome of the election, which, by the way, under the Constitution of the law, he has every single right to do. Anyone who thinks that Joe Biden got 81 million votes, a record number of votes, is smoking something. If you want me to believe, as they insist, that in the African American precincts in the urban areas of America, Detroit, Milwaukee, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Philadelphia, St. Louis, if you're telling me that Joe Biden got on average 20% more of the vote in those black precincts than Barack Obama, I'm calling foul. There is zero chance. Zero chance. And now, of course, they're choking on Georgia. Sorry, here are the facts. 300,000 paper ballots are introduced at 3 o'clock in the morning, and not a single one of them has ever been folded in half. So for them to be mail-in ballots, they must, by definition, have been folded. But they weren't. We have the videotapes that show them being delivered. We have the videotapes of them being brought out from under the desks. The Republican observers were physically removed by the police in Michigan, for example, so they couldn't see the shenanigans. At this point, anyone who doesn't believe that the 2020 election was stolen is just chooses to deny the overwhelming evidence. Yet, in America, if you question the election, which, by the way, you have a fundamental constitutional right to do, well, that was a good way to get banned on X, then Twitter, to get banned on Facebook, to get banned on Instagram. So if you don't bow to the conventional wisdom, then somehow you're a criminal or you're an insurrectionist. Free speech is enshrined in the First Amendment. You have a right to question the elections. The other one that frankly has to be addressed is the idea that forming an alternative slate of electors, electoral college electors, is not and has never been illegal. I don't care what they say over at MSNBC. I don't care what the left-wing media says. It happened in the election of 1877. It happened in the election of 1960. When there is a legal dispute within any given state over the outcome of an election, it is a political precaution to form an alternative slate of electoral college electors. In the event that you win in court, they could then be seated. So at this point, it is amazing that some still want to argue. Some want to argue there really was Russian collusion. That's sick. Tulsi Gabbard has disproved that with her release of declassified documents definitively. No one has a leg to stand on in that bogus claim. But there are still those who try to claim that January 6th was an insurrection. Really? Why wouldn't Nancy Pelosi allow any of the Republicans that were designated by the House Republican leader to sit on that committee? Why? Was she worried about that they might ask the wrong questions? In other words, the right questions? So the January 6th committee members like Adam Schiff and Jamie Raskin and Liz Cheney, these people engaged in criminal activity. They used AI-created videos. They suppressed certain testimony while coaching perjury by suborning perjury by others. Cassidy Hutchinson comes in mind. I'm not sure why she hasn't been charged with perjury yet. They charged me with lying under oath before Congress, even though the full unredacted report released by Robert Mueller proves that I did no such thing. I just wonder when there will be an end to this two-tiered justice system. Joe Biden was mentally unstable while he was running for president. He was both mentally and physically unstable while he was president. It was a horrific case of elder abuse. I actually began to feel sorry for the guy because he was being used by others. Jill Biden knows it. She's fully aware of it. By the way, I predict her book will be an ignominious failure. No one will buy it. But as you correctly point out, publishers pay millions. The book sells in the thousands. It's a bribe. We'll be right back with Troy Smith. Welcome back to the Stone Zone. We're talking to Troy Smith. We've been talking about the Bidens. Troy, you had a couple things you wanted to bring up.
Absolutely, Roger. And just before we get off of this story of corruption and targeting political opponents, as we've seen President Trump and the January 6th prisoners targeted, I didn't want to let the moment pass without talking about Bill Stevenson, who is the former husband, the ex-husband of Jill Biden. and he is currently facing a first-degree murder charge in Wilmington, Delaware. Now, there's a lot going on with this case, Roger, so just to kind of get to it, with Linda Stevenson, she was found unresponsive in her home, and following that find by officers and the paramedics, her husband, Bill, Joe Biden's ex-husband, was arrested in February 2026. He was later indicted by a grand jury and charged with first-degree murder. But there's some really strange facts about this case, Roger. One being that an autopsy has not been released for Linda Stevenson. There's no full indictment or probable cause details shared publicly at all about what happened here. The 911 call details, which they claim there was a 911 call made prior to them finding Linda unresponsive. There's no record of that 911 call. The details have been withheld. And just this level of secrecy in a high-profile case is kind of unusual. And when we look at the $2 million cash bail that was placed on Bill Stevenson and the surrounding facts, it's kind of, it's something that we're looking at and saying, okay, there's not a lot of evidence here. There's been an indictment. And then, Roger, there's the connection. The commissioner who initially pushed this is named Lynn M. Parker, and she is a former Delaware Attorney General, U.S. Attorney for Delaware from the Obama era. She was a Biden Senate campaign supporter and donor. She's defended Hunter Biden publicly, and Joe Biden has called Commissioner Lynn Parker my friend, my new partner in law enforcement. So this is something that's so important, Roger. You have a Commissioner Lynn Parker who is a friend of Joe Biden levying this unreasonable, I think, in many cases, considering we don't have the facts or evidence, $2 million cash bail. And a lot of people are looking at this at Roger and saying this is just another example of people surrounding the Bidens who do wrong, who do no wrong, find themselves under the full boot of the law. And we wanted to kind of get into what's going on. I just want to get your thoughts on this case. It seems to me that this person is being, this person who supported President Trump, Bill Stevenson, who spoke out against Joe Biden and the Bidens, is finding himself under the boot of the law. And I want to get your thoughts on this case. It's got a lot of questions surrounding it.
Yeah, it's our own Greg Kelly has written a terrific piece on this at Substack. I think it smells very, very bad. As you know, Joe Biden was elected to the Senate at age 29. His wife and I think one of his children were tragically killed in an automobile accident when her car driving back from Washington was hit by a tractor trailer. Joe Biden then destroyed the life of the guy driving that truck, insisting repeatedly that he was drunk. He was not drunk, insisting that he was at fault. He was not at fault. He destroyed that guy's life. You see, there are no rules for the Bidens. They don't pay their bills, whether you're a landscaper, whether you're a beautician, whether you're a dentist, whether you're a local grocery store. They think they're above the law. I'm afraid that until Joe is arrested for the massive multi-millions of bribes he took as $1 million as Vice President of the United States, that may be true. But he still will go down in history as one of the worst presidents in the United States. I want to thank our guest, Troy Smith from the slingshot.news. Go check it out, folks. Until next time, God bless you and Godspeed.